Okay, so the Scorpions concert wasn't great, but it wasn't bad also. Now, before I get into this, please don't forget to hit the like button, comment on this video, share this video, and if you still haven't, please subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell for updates. Okay, so right now the Scorpions are here in Vegas for a residency, which ends, I believe, tomorrow. I believe tomorrow's the last date. I went last night and Buck Cherry was opening up, and that was okay for an opening band. They had some sound difficulties at first. However, they were fixed and they did what they were supposed to do. They pretty much warmed up the audience for the Scorpions. They're gutter rock and they've been around for like 20 odd years. I didn't know they were still around. But however, they had some memorable hit songs that you would hear and go, oh, okay, I remember that song, you know. But I don't know, it was kind of like a weird pairing. But however, like I said, they did what they were supposed to do, just warm up the audience for the Scorpions. Now, the Scorpions are celebrating 60 years that they've been together, and they were going to just play things from their 70s all the way up to present day. And when it came to the 70s material, I was hoping that they would start off with this album, their first album. We'll play something from here. This is the album with Michael Schenker, Rudolph's brother. However, they didn't. And the 70s material that they did play, it was sort of a medley of songs. Like, so there'll be a song from Fly to the Rainbow, and it'll just be a riff, and then it'll be a verse, and then it'll be on to the next song from like Virgin Killers, and they'll play a riff, and you know, so on and so forth, and sing a verse. And so they kind of cheated with the whole 70s material. And then Klaus Meine would say, okay, you want to hear stuff from the 80s again, and then everyone goes crazy, because that's when the Scorpions were at their peak, was the 80s. And the first time I saw the Scorpions was in 1988, opening up for Van Halen, or they were the band before Van Halen, on the Monsters of Rock tour. And this was the album that they were promoting at the time, Savage Amusement. Now, they didn't even play anything from this album. And this album had Rhythm of Love and Passion Rules the Game. They were pretty successful songs. However, they didn't play anything from this album, which is a shame, because I always liked this album. They mainly drew from Blackout or Love at First Sting. They did some Love Drive material. They did some Animal Magnetism. So songs like, you know, their hits, like Loving You Sunday Morning, The Zoo. And they had some great visuals. You know, that's one thing. And, you know, Scorpions being a legacy band, I guess the question is, when does a band just call it quits? Okay, so I feel it really depends, for me, is the vocals. I mean, with people playing bass and guitar and drums, I mean, that could be, that's something fixable, okay? But as far as vocals are concerned, you know, that's something that just can't be fixed with the same, you know, with the original singer. Or prime example for me, this is why I feel this way, it was seeing Rush in what year was that? It was the Snakes and Arrows tour, and Geddy's voice was cracking, and it was hard to get through that set. And as much as I love Rush, and they had another album afterwards, I didn't go to that tour because I just felt that, I mean, it's excruciating just to sit through that. And I think that they're great doing studio material after that. And I felt like, yeah, if they would just kept doing studio stuff, had Neil been alive, that'd be great. You know, like what Ozzy was going to do. He said that he was going to just be doing some studio work. Now, Klaus Meine did not have any issues with vocals. He didn't belt it out like he used to do in 1988 when I saw him. However, he was a bit slow. I mean, the band itself, they seemed pretty tired at some points, but for the most part, because they have these video screens on each side, and they're, you know, pretty much vertical, and you know, you could see the guitar players, the drummer. You know, there'll be spotlights on each member, and the one thing is, it makes it look more exciting. And if you do watch the band, sometimes they appear to be like life-size cutouts, right, of cardboard cutouts, you know, just kind of standing there. However, because of the visuals and everything, there's a trade-off, right? So, because you know that they're old, I'm not expecting them to go running around or anything like that. Rudolph was kind of, walking around. I think he did a couple of jumps, but for the most part, I'm not expecting that as long as the music sounds good. Now, the vocals were okay. Again, it wasn't strong, and he'd have a lot of sing-alongs, have the audience sing along, and the crowd is old as well, and they're not really, I sang in 1988. I don't feel like singing tonight. It's the crowd pretty much. They're all my age, 55 plus. You know what I mean? Gen X audience, and we're not doing that anymore. But I mean, there were some participants, because the screen would have the audience on there, and it would look stupid if no one was singing on the screen. So I mean, there were some people participating in that sense, but it was an older crowd, and but of course the band was older, and they had also a scorpion on stage, which was half video and half blow-up doll. The arms were blow-up dolls material, so it looks like it's coming out of the screen in 3D, and the body and the stinger that's on the video screen. So it was a good kind of mesh visual, and the songs, of course, of the 80s that they did play was a lot from this album: Bad Boys Running Wild, Rock You Like a Hurricane. They started the night with Coming Home, which I thought wasn't a really good opener for a number to open up a concert. However, they had some cool visuals to go along with it, because it's very slow. Me personally, I like just a good rock and roll song just to grab the attention of people, and off to the races. This one was like a slow burn, and then gradually, the fog machines came on, and when the lights came up, it was a planet with surrounded by a giant scorpion, and 60. They're emphasizing the 60 years too. And so what had happened is that while the lights come on, they're standing there on clouds, sort of like a 70s kind of stage setup, where they had all that mist coming from the fog machines, right? That kind of effect. And then again, like every song had a different kind of visual effect on the screen, or a different theme. So when they played the zoo, they would have New York in the background, but it was like a drawn up cartoon kind of piece. So at one point they had all these different televisions on the video screens with different eras of the band, which is cool. So this is some nostalgic moments on there if you're a really big fan, and you're catching all these little images of history of the band. So that's really cool. Big City Nights, they had a whole theme about Las Vegas, and one thing about the guitarist Matthias, he had different guitars with different themes on it as well. So if they're playing Big City Nights, which is about Las Vegas, they had some Las Vegas imagery, and he had a Las Vegas themed guitar. He also had a Love at First Sting guitar, so it was blackish and gray with this couple on there. And then he had a Blackout one when he was playing Blackout. He had this guitar with this guy with the forks in his eyes and everything, and it's blue. So that was really cool. And one thing about this set, the set list, was there was a lot of instrumental music, because I believe Klaus Meine needed some breaks in between. So they would do songs like Coast to Coast, which was an instrumental 70s piece. And they would also, do solos where they were like unaccompanied. Like, say, Matthias had an instrumental song that he was doing. The bass player and the drummer, who was Mickey D, who played with Motorhead, he was outstanding in this band. He was a monster. So they had this little jam kind of back and forth going on, the bass player and the drummer then had a solo. Sort of just like kind of brings you back to the time of the 80s, where the unaccompanied solo, where the whole band walks out and one member starts to go off on whatever he's playing. You don't really see that anymore. It's like bands go out there and perform songs and leave, but this was sort of just like that. Kind of reminded me of like, okay, the solo. I mean, other than Rush, which you're going to expect a solo when they were touring by Neil, yeah, that was expected. But that was more like a song. Neil would call it a song of whatever it was called. Whether it's the rhythm method or I forgot what he would call some of his instrumental drum solos, but yeah, there was something to it there. It was musical. However, with the Scorpions, they were kind of doing the same thing. And then there was an acoustic section of the show where it would just be Rudolph and Matthias playing acoustic guitars. And Rudolph had a really cool Flying V acoustic guitar, which I'd never seen before, because he's always playing Flying V, so why not have an acoustic one? And one thing is, every time people play acoustic guitars, they never sound good. Unless they're playing to a microphone. I always felt like that sounded good, other than acoustic guitars that are plugged in with a pickup. They always seem to sound bad. But this night, their guitars sounded really crisp, and it sounded there was no reverberation of any kind, or kind of weird feedback or anything. It was very silent and very perfect. And they played Send Me an Angel and Winds of Change. I'm not really, those songs are really cool, but I'm not really into like a lot of their slower material. Like, I'm glad they didn't play Still Loving You. I wish they would play something like Holiday. That's one of the songs that I really liked from, as far as a slow number from the Scorpions. However, by the time you get to the encore, right, they leave the three big numbers. They do Blackout, and they start off with Blackout. And one thing that happened is, as far as being an older band and everything like that, now it may not have been vocally where things would start to go haywire. However, Rudolph on the last at the end of the song started playing another after the guitar lead and going into the outro. He was playing another riff, you know, and it was bad. And Klaus is kind of looking at him. At first, he looks at Matthias and he's like, "No, that's not me." And then he everyone's kind of looking at Rudolph, and you know, playing 3 bars of something wrong, or playing the wrong riff for 3 bars is a long time. When because there's a moment when it always seems like when someone's playing the wrong, you know, riff, and it's not meshing right, and it takes a minute until the one who's playing it going, "Oh shit, what am I doing?" And you're already in it, and you know, there has to be some kind of telekinetic communication with everyone to go, "Hey, let's get back on the same page," kind of thing. And same thing happened with Sabbath, right, on their set with War Pigs, where Bill Ward was he was already playing the ending in the middle of the song, and he was playing this section of the song that wasn't even there yet, and so it took them a while to you know, get their bearings together and then all get back together and on the same page. Same thing kind of happened here, you know. I mean, these guys are old as well, and you know, I mean, it really is, age is just a number, because there are some bands that defy all of this, and for me, that's the Rolling Stones. Mick Jagger is, you know, a force of nature. I mean, he's running and working a giant stage for a stadium and singing really well, singing the same. Nothing has changed. Klaus, he's a little slower, right? And but as far as like, yeah, people kind of just playing the wrong parts and everything like that. And once something like that happens, then sometimes, you know, bands when they were younger, or and especially with a residency, that's another thing. A residency, bands, you know, could how could I say it? They could just sometimes go on autopilot. Like, if they're here at the same place, they don't have to set up, you know, they don't really have to sound check, or, you know, everything is dialed in already, and you know, they just go on and play a similar set, because their sets are kind of similar. They don't really deviate. They have like alternate songs to trade off on, so they didn't do Still Loving You. I did see that on the set list for different nights and whatnot, but they didn't play it. So they didn't play because they weren't playing No One Like You, but they played No One Like You last night, which was cool, and they didn't play Still Loving You. So I guess my prayers were answered. So thank you guys for that, because No One Like You comes off live way better than that song. And when they were playing that song, which was right after the blackout incident, and the one thing also I want to say about blackout is that by the time, you know, they figured out that everything is all screwed up, or, you know, 2 of them knew, but Rudolph didn't, and then they're trying to like get to the end of this song. You know, at the end of the song, you know, on the album, it abruptly stops, and then, you know, shattered glass, right? And so, you know, just like the cover, right? Right. And so I guess they were supposed to do that, and because on the video screen there's glass like shattering, and it was supposed to be, you know, it was supposed to be the timing was off, you know, so it was shattered glass, and it was like a awkward ending. So now, so they go on to the next song, and No One Like You, and right when Matthias goes on in his lead, Klaus is singing started a verse again, and then he stopped. Like, what the hell? And so by this time, this is what I'm kind of saying is like they're just like going through the motions, maybe. Here we are again in Las Vegas, saying the same shit every night, and residencies could probably get there's no surprises anymore, and it's very I don't know. It's the enthusiasm is not going to be there like the first night, no doubt. But there's also the anything that could happen that has happened already should be, kind of smoothened out by, a certain time of the residency, because you kind of already went through all this kind of, little, I don't know, it just, especially working out a different venue or the same venue, and I know that with U2 at the Sphere, that was like they were the first band to play at the Sphere and work out the kinks by the time, they had like how many shows. And so a lot of that, and with the thing with playing a residency, is sort of just like, yeah, you kind of work out the kinks of just the acoustics and everything like that. So, and sometimes you could be really tight, but at the same time, you could just be kind of like, just kind of phone it in, but not really phone it in, but just kind of be on autopilot, depending on how enthusiastic you are. And I think with them at their age, especially Klaus, who has to have like some breaks, and let Matthias jam out for a while, or whatever. Yeah, I could see them kind of like messing up and just like, oh, okay. And I think it was because they were always playing Still Loving You, but then they switched it up, and maybe that was another thing too. He hasn't sang No One Like You in a while. I haven't seen it on the set list, so they did kind of bring that out for this night, last night. And so maybe that's why Klaus was kind of like, oh shit, I just sang that verse, and he's on his lead, but hey, rock and roll is not about perfection, right? So we can move on to Rock You Like a Hurricane, and it's just like, by this time it's like, yeah, it's the last song, let's just rock this out. And so like I said, it wasn't the greatest show, but it wasn't the worst show. And it's the Scorpions' great songs and great playing, great musicianship. These songs are perfect, and I always felt like Klaus Meine and Rudolf Schenker, Meine and Schenker is just like a Page and Plant or a Jagger and Richards. They were never kind of given that kind of appreciation as far as like a writing duo like a Lennon and McCartney. I think Meine and Rudolph they're fucking awesome. I mean, I'm looking at these songs here, and just those two names as music and lyrics, it's just like they write some great songs together, you know what I mean? But they were never really given a lot of credit for that. So I'm just here shouting that out because yes, they have some great songs. So leave me a comment below, and what are your thoughts on the Scorpions if you've seen the show here in Las Vegas, or if you've seen the show recently in this last year. They're on this 60-year celebration tour, and what are your thoughts on that, or even like legend kind of legacy bands? When should they call it quits? For me, like I said, if the vocals are bad, I mean that all these other things can be fixed with instruments and people playing. However, the voice is very important. And with that, I'll shut up, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye.